He was unprepared for the wedding gift. This past Friday evening, at approximately 7:30 o'clock, I made a visit to Toby's Bar and Grill. Following the conclusion of discussions with a major multinational bank that had taken place over the course of the previous 2 days in New York City, I was completely exhausted. At the beginning of the day, I was dubious about the possibility that we would ever come to an agreement, yet it appeared like unsolved impediments started to fall together like dominoes. In the immediate aftermath of the beginning of our Friday meeting at noon, there were just 2 obstacles left. In order to take a break, we decided to go out and eat lunch. I located the Jewish deli that was closest to me and placed an order for a sinfully enormous pastrami sandwich with Swiss cheese and rye bread. When we got together again at 1:30, I savored each and every bite. According to George Willis, the senior negotiator for the bank, we have made a significant amount of progress. My suggestion is that we divide the difference between the 2 most recent points. While George was passing the document across the meeting table, I took the opportunity to read what he was proposing. There was little doubt that the difference was not distributed in an equal manner, yet it was well within the confines of what my partners and I could accept in order to secure this significant deal. After scribbling my initials on the page, George informed me that he will send me an email with the official contract starting on Monday. We parted ways after exchanging handshakes and then went our separate ways. Following my return to my hotel, I proceeded to collect my belongings and check out. Because my fiancée Trish was away for the weekend with her 2 elder sisters, I was considering remaining in town for the night. I was thinking about why I should do this. They made a stop at one of the largest Indian casinos in Connecticut, where they intended to spend their days at the spa and pool and their evenings at the most reputable pubs and restaurants in the area. Instead of spending another night away from home, I went to Grand Central Station and rode the Metro North train to New Haven at 7:30. I arrived in New Haven earlier than I had planned. I was on I-91 toward Hartford, and off the highway I was heading through the always popular downtown West Hartford, where I decided to stop for dinner. I was sitting at Toby's Bar when I noticed my 2 future daughters-in-law through the bar mirror sliding into a horseshoe-shaped table. Their husbands settled down next to them. The immediate knot in my stomach and the pain that seemed to spread through every inch of my body told me that my wedding plans, which were exactly 8 weeks away, were in trouble. My sisters-in-law were supposed to be at the casino with Trish. I called Trish as I was leaving the bar, and she responded with a "Hello, my darling. I hope everything is going well in the big city. Everything is the same as it always is. We have successfully concluded the negotiations, and I am about to leave for dinner. I really wish you were here with me. You are really adorable. Chris, like you, I miss you. Throughout the entire day we had a great time. We enjoyed some sips of water while lounging by the pool. For the pre-wedding ton, I get a fairly excellent deal. Just a few minutes from now, I will be having dinner with my sisters. We continued our conversation for a short while before exchanging places. You have my love. The call was then terminated. After checking the Find My Phone app, I entered Trish's information into the system. Despite the fact that I do not know where Trish was, her phone number was in Falmouth, Massachusetts, which is located on the westernmost point of Cape Cod. Oh my goodness, I was under the impression that Nick Flamey, Trisha's longtime neighbor and friend, had a family home in Falmouth. The invitations to visit there came multiple times. By searching through my contact information, I was able to locate the phone number of Sue Faherty, and I decided to call her. Chris Toby Harrington. Chris, this is such a delightful surprise. Where are we at with the wedding preparations? Both Nick and I are looking forward to the celebrations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea how the plans are going to turn out. Sue chuckled to herself. This is an example of a typical male response. Tell Sue, did Nick go on a trip this weekend? What a strange question. Nick almost never has to travel on the weekends, but this weekend he's away. What's the matter? Sue asked with slight concern in her voice. Do you have my phone application on your phone? Sue involuntarily sobbed and said, almost in a whisper, not again. A minute later she continued that he should be in Philadelphia, but the beacon shows that he is in his family's cottage. With a sad sigh, I said, sorry, Sue. Nick and Trish are there together. Sue cried quietly for several minutes. This is not the first time she admitted I'm going to call that son of A and tell him not to come home. Can I ask you a favor? Sue, Trish isn't due home until Sunday afternoon. Same thing with Nick. Let's postpone our confrontation until tomorrow evening. In the meantime, I'm going to change the locks on my condominium doors and withdraw half of the wedding money from our joint account. I will pack all her clothes and other personal items and leave the bags in the driveway." "You're right." "Chris, I'll do the same. Please write or call if you need to talk to someone. I'm sorry I had to tell you Sue started crying again, and between sobs, she said it's not your fault. Chris, my last call was to Billy Jones, a friend and neighbor. Please assist me. Billy, will you be home tomorrow morning? My only plans are to sleep until noon, but Sally will wake me up at 7 a.m. What can I do for you? Can you change the locks on my front door and the door leading out of the garage and change the code on your garage door opener? I will be very grateful." There was a moment of silence before Billy said, "Crap. Is the wedding cancelled unless I'm missing something important? Trish and I are dead and buried. I understand. I'll do this first thing in the morning and change everything." 20 years older, I trudged back to Toby's and headed towards the bar. I looked in the mirror at the reflection of my daughters-in-law and their husbands as the waiter cleared away their appetizers. I grabbed a bar stool and made my way to my former future family's table with my drink. As I plopped down on the stool at the end of the table, I climbed into the seat and glared between Julie and Karen. The atmosphere quickly became chilly. "Chris, buddy, come here. Look at the menu," said Steve. Karen's husband, without taking my eyes off the women, answered, "No thanks, Steve, I won't stay long." I continued to look at Julie and Karen in silence until Roy, Julie's husband, asked, "What's going on?" "Chris asked your wife." Roy and Steve turned to their wives. It was easy to see that both women were scared to death. "What's happening?" Steve asked the sisters. Karen spoke first. "It's not what you think, Chris." "I guess that's exactly what I think." Steve and Roy looked like from their wives to me as tears streamed down Karen's face. Steve asked again, "What's going on, Chris? Your wives are covering for Trish. They were all together in my kitchen last Tuesday since I was going to be out of town until Sunday. They were going to Foxwoods Casino for the weekend." "Where is Trish?" Roy asked the sisters when they were silent. He turned and looked at me. "She's at Nick's house on Cape Cod. This is true." Steve hissed at this moment. Both women were crying. Aeon nodded in agreement. Julie sobbed, "Trish loves you, Chris. She really loves it." Steve rolled his eyes, and Roy stared at the tabletop. "She has a great way of showing her love. She and her sisters are lying to me, and she's going away with the old neighbor guy for a weekend of sex fest just 8 weeks before she marries me. Your sister is a piece of do not dare." Roy interrupted his wife and shut the door. Julie turned to me and he asked, "What are you going to do?" "Of course I'm going to cancel the wedding." Both friends leaned back in their chairs, and their wives cried even more. "Daddy spent so much money on the wedding and reception." Karen sobbed, "I don't care. I'm not going to marry a lying cheater like Trish." I waited a few moments. We talked to Sue Fleury about Nick cheating with Trish. We'd both like 24 hours before we crushed them. 4 pairs of eyes were looking at me as I asked Roy and Steve, "I need your help." "Can you make sure?" My head jerked towards their wives. "Can you make sure that they don't contact Trish before 6:15 tomorrow night?" Both women began to protest before Steve said, "Of course we can, mate," and then turning to his wife, he said, "You disgust me. I have to wonder if your sisters ever had your back while you cheated on me." Karen was stunned, and Steve continued, "If you, Julie, get involved with Trish in any way, I will consider filing for divorce." Roy's face was bright red with anger. His words caused Julie to groan sadly as he said that after the problems we had at the beginning of our 3rd year of marriage, I could have filed for divorce anyway, but rest assured I will definitely apply if you contact Trish. I shook hands with both men and left the restaurant. Saturday was busy. It took me several hours to remove the last traces of Trish from our house. Instead of piling filled garbage bags in the driveway, I rented a small storage unit, and my neighbor Billy lent me his pickup truck. It only took 3 trips to get all the bags to the warehouse. The hardest part was writing the letter to our wedding guests. I worked on the email in chunks throughout the day. It said, "Topic Harrington and Clark Wedding News. Dear friends, I'm currently halfway through my wedding, just 8 short weeks before my wedding day to Trish Clark. The weekend was spectacular because I discovered that Trish spent her weekend in another man's bed. Trish and her longtime neighbor Nick Flaherty cheated on me and Nick's wife Sue with the help of sisters Trish, Karen and Julie. In their lies, the couple spends the weekend together on Cape Cod. You may wonder why I find this terrible behavior impressive, and the reason is simple. I'm not married to Trish. It's much easier to call off a wedding than to go through the pain of divorce. This letter is my official notice that I am cancelling my wedding to Trish Clark. Christopher Harrington. I called Sue Flammy at 5:30 on a Saturday afternoon. Together we told each other about the tasks we were able to complete because Sue was married. Because it was much more difficult for her to break up with Nick, she was able to speak with a lawyer and had an appointment scheduled for Monday morning. The lawyer recommended cancelling joint credit cards and separating family finances as much as possible. This was typical legal advice in cases of divorce. We ended our call a few minutes before 6 p.m. and agreed to send our couples a message at 6 a.m. sharp. My message simply said, "I hope you enjoy your weekend with Nick. Thank you for showing me and the world that you are a liar and a cheat. Our wedding is cancelled." I sent the message at exactly 6 p.m. and immediately I sent an email to our family and guests. 16 months later, I stood on the edge of the altar. My best man and groomsmen flanked me. The bridesmaids looked stunning as they walked down the center aisle of the church. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked towards the back of the church. Trisha's father stood proudly dressed in his black tuxedo, his eyes like mine, and those of the rest of our guests were focused on the most beautiful bride in the world. Her blonde hair was styled and looked beautiful under the small white veil blue eyes, which sparkled and were full of love, and dark red lips suggested wicked thoughts about our upcoming wedding night. The tight white wedding dress emphasized her heavenly figure without making her look. It was wonderful as Mr. Clark and my fiancé walked down the aisle towards me. I felt a pair of eyes boring a hole into me. I looked around at the guests on my side of the church before looking at the bride's side. When I saw Trish, tears rolled down her cheeks. I saw her say quietly, "I'm sorry," before she turned to her father and little sister, walking toward me. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you. And go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.